Welcome to another episode of Monster Monday from the Ready to Die channel. This series explores the design of a creature I have built for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The stat block for this creature can be found over on the Monster Monday blog, as well as the Twitter and Discord, all of which are linked below. I didn't plan on doing another folklorish froggy foe right after the Hui, but some monsters couldn't get their rear in gear and had to be temporarily tabled. So, with a tight turn, I've tossed together a trauma-triggering toad, best known as the Gitrog monster. A frog horror hailing from Magic the Gathering, this creature is represented by 2.5 cards and featured in a short story entitled Sacrifice. Its color identity is green-black, and it is a fairly bulky monster with 6 power and 6 toughness. This, in addition to some of its other abilities, led to me building it as a level 10 monster. A solid contender for the boss of a mini-campaign, but not one of the many world-ending threats that plague its home plane of Innistrad. Given its creature type of frog horror and MTG, and some of its more extraordinary powers, it has the beast and mutant trait, though I could see potentially adding on the aberration trait as well. Likely unsurprisingly, the Gitrog monster uses an extreme strength bonus and a high constitution, but it might be a shock to know that this warty Rastral wields a moderate charisma. This serves the Gitrog monster to some of its more fantastical abilities, particularly those within its featured story. Additionally, while it never speaks, the Gitrog monster seems to possess a more sinister intellect than most beasts I've built, and it will thus use a marginally higher intelligence. A dweller in muck that relies on unusual hunting methods, I settled on a low perception. It has a high athletics and intimidation, the latter of which is due to it not sharing a language with most creatures, but the Gitrog monster also has a propensity towards staying hidden, sort of like the Loch Ness monster. Therefore, it also uses a low stealth bonus. The Gitrog monster is a beefy target, with decently tough hide, but it isn't doing a lot of dodging. It uses a moderate armor class, with a high hit point value helping it hang in the fight. Naturally, it uses a high fortitude save to match its general toughness in association with poison, but its reflex save will be its lowest save at a terrible bonus. Its considerable bulk ends up slowing it down a bit. Its will save is in between them, with a low bonus to account for some of its mental powers. It also comes with a resistance to poison, as I couldn't find anything on its cards that suggests it would be fully immune to poison, but it feels appropriate that it would have some way to mitigate it. The Gitrog monster has 2 attacks. Its jaws use only a moderate attack bonus and don't have any traits to aid it, but they are compensated with a high damage value, as well as the grab ability and its own Gitrog venom. This venom is based on the Gitrog's Death Touch keyword. This poison uses only a moderate DC, since it is something the Gitrog monster inflicts with every bite, while the stupefied condition it causes is based on the Pathfinder 2E's Giant Toad. This weakening of the mind does work very nicely for the Gitrog monster, as it ends up setting up some of its other features. In addition to its fearsome bite, the Gitrog monster also wields an unusually powerful tongue, that in its story is described as shattering mass and causing injuries. As such, this will deviate from typical tongue attacks by dealing moderate damage with a high attack bonus. Naturally, it also has tongue grab, behaving similar to a standard grabbing effect, and this will lead into its tongue drag. For those of you that also watched the Hui video, this is the exact same thing. But for those that didn't, this allows the Gitrog monster to make use of its high athletics to reel in prey, and once it has, it can directly swallow the creature with its swallow whole ability, instead of having to transfer them to its jaws. Its swallow whole deals damage between low and moderate, and also has a drop of poison damage in there to fit the Gitrog's general theme. The initial Gitrog monster card, and to a lesser extent its other cards, have a focus on land manipulation within Magic the Gathering. It requires lands to be sacrificed to it every round, allows you to play additional lands, and gives you card draw when a land goes to the graveyard. There's a lot of game-specific mechanics going on here, and translating them all is a little difficult to say the least. I ended up zeroing in on the land destruction and incorporated that into its spoiled ground aura. This effect blights the ground around it, turning it into both difficult and hazardous terrain. Given the theming from its Death Touch keyword, the hazard deals poison damage, the value of which I kept low since our fearsome amphibious foe isn't lacking for damage. This discourages skirmishing tactics, forcing those who use them to suffer the poisoned earth or devise an alternate method of making it work. As an online exclusive for MTG Arena, there's another card for our cruel critter called Gitrog, Horror of Zava. It has some land chicanery going on, but also has the Menace keyword. This power is yet again tied into the mechanics of Magic, so I went for a more literal interpretation of it and gave the Gitrog monster the Menacing Croak ability. Design-wise, this borrows heavily from the Boggart's Terrifying Croak, but since the Gitrog monster is a far more powerful creature, I added in the fleeing condition on a critical failure. As I've talked about previously, I always try to diversify the saves a monster can inflict, and this particular effect gave me the opportunity to add in a will save. A handy aspect of this is that it allows the Gitrog monster to slip by the language barrier it would normally face from trying to demoralize the target. The final tool in the Gitrog monster's kit comes not from any of its cards, but the story I mentioned at the start of this video. The Story of Sacrifice is a short little read that I have linked below, so if you want to check that out for yourself, I'm going to take a few seconds here to let you pause the video and go do so. Alright, moving on. Over the course of the story, we discovered that the Gitrog monster has the ability to bring others under its control through its gaze. This is most brutally and directly demonstrated in the climax of the story, which the protagonist murders her best friend and feeds his corpse to the insatiable abomination. Reflecting this power is its dominating gaze. The degrees of success are particularly important for this ability, as is the incapacitation trait, since a controlled condition is no joke. But, at the same time, I wanted to at least partially represent its ability to enthrall an entire village. Therefore, this uses a moderate DC, has the visual trait so that players can avert their gaze for a bonus against it, and then has its degrees of success. A critical success grants flat out immunity to this effect for 24 hours. A success simply leaves the target confused for a round, controlled for a round on a failure, and then controlled for an entire day on a critical failure. Ultimately, this ability is meant to represent the control it had over the villagers in its story, while staying within the bounds of being an ability for a Pathfinder 2e monster that the heroes will face and should overcome. But that rounds out the build for the Gitrog monster. This hopping horror haunts hazardous habitats and hypnotically holds hapless helpers hostage to hamper heroes. Between its toxic touch, the poisonous earth it surrounds itself in, and its fearsome bite, the Gitrog monster is a dangerous foe that can pile on poison damage. It serves solidly as a mid-level boss, and it could be attended to by flocks of brainwashed villagers, or the heroes might encounter it after having fallen prey to the ploy of the perfidious folk and finding themselves presented as offerings to their froggy overlord. You can check out the Monster Monday blog and Twitter for the stat blocks, or hop on the Discord to join the monster making and general tabletop discussions. These posts also include a Pathfinder 1st Edition version of the monster, along with a D&D 5e conversion. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.